Cześć, welcome to today's video, and I have a fairly difficult subject because it is the 82nd anniversary of Jedwabne, and it is going to be difficult, but I'm open to looking into these things. There is no reason why we shouldn't be able to learn from history, debate about what happened in history to make us better as the human race. So hopefully this will be interesting. We'll all learn something. Let's check it out.
Hey guys, yesterday was the 80th anniversary of the Jedwabne Pogrom.
It's now the
German,
82nd
Israeli,
anniversary.
and US diplomats attended. Like every year, the entire town boycotted the event. Some Polish nationalists attended with provocative signs. Jedwabne is a very important issue in Poland, very controversial, but little about it is known outside of Poland. This is the only result when searching for Jedwabne English on YouTube by Jan Gross, a man I promise you we will talk about soon.
See, this is the thing. I am outside of Poland and I have never heard of this. So if we can learn about it outside of Poland, then that's brilliant, because history is history and you've got to learn from history to make sure things like what I assume bad things happened, you got to make sure they don't happen again.
There's also this ridiculously inaccurate Journeyman documentary. Clearly, very recap the film, and I'll do my best to explain the history, the controversy, and give you some insights on how it affects contemporary Poland. Jedwabne is a little town in northeastern Poland. Around the time of the partition of Poland and the creation of a Pale of Settlement, a Jewish community was established. Under the second partition of 1795, Jedwabne went under Prussian rule. Similar to which, it had a brief economic boom at the center of textile manufacturing, but this soon declined, for heavy fighting in World War I that destroyed much of the machinery. In the summer of 1920, during the Polish-Soviet War, a Bolshevik Provisional Polish Revolutionary Committee was formed in Jedwabne, and it is noted that some residents of the town were actively involved. This is a theme that we'll repeat later on. Before World War II, Jedwabne had a population of less than 3,000. About 60% were Polish and 40% were Jewish.
Very small population.
In 1939, Jedwabne was invaded by the Germans. Music fans note Jedwabne is only 5 kilometers from the Battle of Wisna, called the Polish Thermopylae, immortalized in the Sabaton song 40-1. As per the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, Jedwabne was turned over to Soviet control. Here, the main element of a narrative synthesizes: a pogrom inspired by revenge, ethnic retribution for collaboration with brutal Soviet occupiers. Like in other parts of Eastern Europe, people suffered greatly under 2 years of Soviet rule. For the perception that many Jews welcomed and collaborated with the Soviets, Jedwabne was no exception. It is noted that some young Jews in the town had joined the NKVD. Entire Polish families were denounced and sent to their deaths, the so-called Siberian exiles. A monument in Jedwabne reads, "In memory of the deportees who died of hunger and cold, both murdered in the camps of Siberia and Kazakhstan." Everything changed Sunday morning, June 29, 1941. Hitler launches Operation Barbarossa. Jedwabne is so close to the Molotov line that you could see Nazi Germany on a clear day. The entirety of German Army Group centers swept past Jedwabne in the opening hours of invasion on their way to Białystok. In the following day, the Jewish population swelled with refugees after evictions and pogroms in nearby towns. On July 10, 1941, the Jedwabne pogrom occurred, where 1,600 Jews were forced into a 17-meter by 9-meter barn and burnt alive. In 1944, after the communist takeover, some local Poles were later denounced for participation and tortured. A monument was erected in the 60s.
What
place of the destruction of the Jewish population. Here.
Wow. Wow. So these Jews were just put in a barn and burnt alive. That is brutal. That is absolutely brutal and horrible. So who was it? Was it the Germans? Was it the Poles? Was it the Soviets? Who did it? Who is to blame for this?
Here, Gestapo and Nazi paramilitary police burnt alive 1,600 people on July 10, 1941. And this is where the story stood. completely forgotten and obscure event of marginal regional significance that no one in Poland knew anything about. Until the year 2000. Enter Jan Gross, professor of history at Princeton University. That year he published Neighbors, The Destruction of a Jewish Community in Jedwabne. His book stated that one day, in July 1941, half the population of a small East European town murdered the other half, some 1,600 men, women, and children. Gross concluded that the Jedwabne Jews had been rounded up and killed not by Germans, but by a mob of their own Polish neighbors. Jan Gross's revisionist account sparked a shitstorm of epic proportions in Poland that still reverberates to this day. Norman Finkelstein's The Holocaust Industry was coincidentally released the same year, and its Polish translation became influential in the Polish narrative.
During the anti-Semitic campaign by the Polish communist government, Gross emigrated from Poland to the United States in 1969. In 1975, he earned a PhD in sociology from Yale University for a thesis on the Polish underground state, which was published as Polish Society under German occupation. Now, we have obviously, I've learned here and while I was in Warsaw, that obviously after the war, Poland wasn't run by Poland. It wasn't. It was run by the communist Polish that basically aligned with the Soviets, and they weren't necessarily the good ones. But no wonder why this has only just come out, maybe, or the subject is not well known. It's a small little village, small town. It's not that there's probably an easy way to cover it up and make it look not as it was, maybe.
Jan Gross's reputation of an academic is generally very bad in Poland. Polish historians have fact-checked his book and turned it apart for inaccuracies and bad scholarship, bad sourcing, and such. Before this book was published, everyone in Poland believed that Poland was a victim, not a perpetrator, of any crimes in World War II. Some random bandits and individual actions that were usually punished by Polish organizations in the underground state, who had no tolerance for anti-Semitism. But hey, this is Poland. We have a crime scene we can investigate. So, we come to the first big controversy, the short-lived partial forensic investigation of 2001. The exhumation was led by Professor Andrzej Kula, who was very experienced managing the exhumation works of the victims of Stalinist repressions in Poland and Ukraine. Guys generally very good and well respected. There are two mass graves, one inside the barn and one directly outside. I'll be showing pictures of the exhumation throughout this video. The exhumation was to be conducted by the Institute of National Remembrance and supervised by Polish rabbis. This investigation should have taken several months at least of careful study and would have determined cause of death, number of victims, and answered any uncertain questions. However, within a few days of starting, Lech Kaczynski, the then Minister of Justice and soon-to-be Prime Minister of Poland for Law and Justice, suddenly announced the exhumation had to stop. He told the archaeologist to shut the investigation down. Polish media explained that the Jewish community objected to the investigation on religious grounds. Michael Shudrich, who is the current chief rabbi of Poland, said, "Respect for the bones of our victims is more important to us than knowing who was killed and how, who killed and how." It is reported that some of the Polish investigators wept in frustration as they watched one of the rabbis lowering the bone fragments back to the graves. As an aside, perhaps the memorial created at Belzec in 2004 is somehow related to the exhumation at Jedwabne. Any exhumation or even LiDAR study is impossible without destroying the memorial, which is just rubble that's been spread over the entire area, ensuring both graves will not be disturbed. The lack of exhumation in Jedwabne does not allow us to make categorical statements about the course of a crime, the number of victims, and the manner of their death. So, what did the investigator find in their short days of digging?
It's fascinating that they started it and clearly did a fair bit of digging. You can see from the images how much was already excavated. Excavated? Yeah. How much was already started. So for them to all of a sudden have to stop, That's odd. It's really odd, and I get it. I get it, like, there is the whole thing of just lay them to rest, but it depends on which view. In my view, there is no afterlife. Once you're gone, you're gone. That is it. So it wouldn't bother me. At the end of the day, we dig up bones all the time. Dinosaur bones. You don't then say, "Oh, yeah, but their souls are still there." Whatever. It just seems strange to all of a sudden stop it and just cover it all up when so much had clearly already happened. Strange.
Well, they did find some charred bones and a partial statue of Lenin. However, throw of a twist, they also found approximately 100 bullet shells, mostly German Mausers. Very minor mystery in a 7.92 millimeter iron casing, which was also found. According to German experts, it appears to have been shot with an MG42. The problem with the finding is that the MG42 was not produced in 1941. I don't quite understand this part of the story. If you have an insight, please leave a comment. Simple explanation that it was a prototype. The most common Polish narrative ends here. They believe once the German shells were found, the investigation was stopped as it would prove it was a German crime and not a Polish crime. Many demand investigation continues as they believe it will further exonerate Poland. And another aside, an interesting factoid is before the IPN publicly revealed the presence of German ammunition, eyewitnesses didn't mention it in their recollections, but after it was revealed, they did. Let's address the reason the exhumation was stopped. The Jewish religious law forbidding the disrupting of graves. I am not a Talmudic expert, but this appears to be a fringe Orthodox belief. And in Israel, they do it all the time for mundane things including building parking garages. If you are digging a highway in Jerusalem, there's a good chance you're going to be hitting a few Jewish graves at some point.
See, that seems mad because, like he said, in in what is the motherland of the Jews, grave sites are dug up all the time. But actually, Poland is not a Jewish country. Yes, it had a lot of Jewish people, but it's not. It's technically a Catholic country. So why would it stop because of that? Which the Jewish laws and whatever don't actually cover Poland. So that seems bizarre. You could look at it in the sense that actually they found the German ammunition. Then all right, it's probably going to be German, maybe, but there seems something fishy about it.
This 2007 article by Rabbi Britovitz is titled "The Desecration of Grave in Eretz Israel: The Struggle to Honor the Dead and Preserve Our Historical Legacy," and he talks about how the sanctity of Jewish grave is a very fringe minority view in Israel. Now, Poles have pored over every aspect of this case, and some people have dwelt into Jewish law and found the explanation that exhumation forbidden by Jewish law as lacking. Additionally, historically in Poland, this argument was never made. The Jews living in the Polish kingdom were granted the privileges of dealing with civil matters in rabbinical courts, but in criminal matters, for example murder, they were subject to Polish courts.
See?
Earlier in this video, I mentioned that preceding the Jedwabne Pogrom, there were other pogroms in the immediate region. Did German, American, and Israeli representatives go to those towns and commemorate them? No. Only Jedwabne is ever mentioned, despite having a lower kill count on Wikipedia than some of the other ones. Jedwabne is a famous one right now, but it is odd that its anniversary is always a noted event, while the dozens of other incidents in the area pass by with no mention. I'm displaying some of them now. Before doing the research for this video, I had believed that the reason Jedwabne was special was because the other ones had solid proof that the Germans were in those towns, right? However, I'm not too sure about this. In one town, the Wikipedia even says that the Jews escaped from the Poles and got help from passing Germans who stopped the pogrom.
Huh.
No exhumation have been done in any of these other events, and they rely on eyewitness testimony. For how extreme the allegations are, there is very little information about them. So, what happened? Most Poles believe the perpetrator of all these pogroms in the West Białystok region in the summer of 1941 with a German, Hermann Schaper. He is said to have been in all these towns during their killings, and there's a pattern to the killings. If you ask a Pole about Jedwabne, their answer will depend on their political leanings. A conservative or Polish nationalist will likely say, it's a German crime, the Germans did it. And a left-winger might say, it's a Polish crime, we're guilty. For final thoughts. The truth does not fear investigation. I, like most other Poles, believe exhumation needs to be done to find out exactly what happened, regardless of what the outcome of that investigation is. If there's an accusation of a crime, like any crime, it should be investigated. In general, however, if there are two sides arguing, and one side is trying to investigate and look for clues, and the other side ferociously prevents any investigation, which one looks so very, very sus?
Yeah.
Here is a typical Polish comment on the matter. Why did the Polish Jewish community ask the Polish government to stop exhumation in Jedwabne? Because of that, in my opinion, everything what is said about that crime is still nothing more than hypothesis. The first thing that must be done is completing the exhumation.
See, that's the interesting thing. As it is at the moment, this situation, you don't know who did it. There's evidence for the Germans who did it, but that's not concrete evidence, is it? And so why are they still disputing it? It's crimes need to be solved. Okay, it may not actually make any difference in the long grand scheme of things, but crimes should be solved, or at least attempted to be.
Seems pretty reasonable. Further, the inability to do an investigation on our own land is a sign or symptom of current Polish weakness, in my opinion. One thing some Poles worry about is American education. In 2020, Donald Trump signed the Never Again Education Act into law. Polish groups opposed it because it would give control of narrative building to Jewish groups that could have interest in turning perception of Poland from victim to perpetrator. This relates to things like property restitution. It's also well understood in Poland that the reason Germany is unable to oppose migration or be nationalist is because they are a perpetrator. And some fear this mentality will spread to Poland. Yesterday, it was the 80th anniversary of the Jedwabne Pogrom, and many prominent Polish left-wing politicians commemorated it. Never forget, they said. However, it was also the 78th-year anniversary of Bloody Sunday, where in a coordinated attack, thousands of Polish civilians were butchered by Ukrainians in one day. These leftists commemorate Jedwabne of a Polish crime, wouldn't be caught dead commemorating Bloody Sunday, and associate its memorial with hateful nationalism that incites hate against Ukrainians.
I say this all the time. Nationalism is a bad thing. It's a bad thing because it creates hate, it creates divide, it creates anger. Nationalism is a bad thing. You can love your country, that's not a problem, that's patriotism, but nationalism is bad. It just creates anger, and so much has happened because of nationalism. Look at it. At the end of the day, Hitler, Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, like they were talking about Bloody Sunday. So it's funny how many countries have a Bloody Sunday, because in Ireland they have a Bloody Sunday where the Brits came in and killed at Croke Park, the stadium in Dublin. But nationalism causes so many problems because we need to be thinking as the human race, not as individuals or groups of individuals, because it creates separation. It's a bad thing. No matter what you say, I've had so many polls in previous videos saying, oh, nationalism's fine. No, it's not. It's bad. You can be proud of where you're from. You can be proud of what you have. But nationalism creates anger and divide and tension. That's why people don't want the far right to get into power. You can argue that all you like, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm right on this one.
It should be forgotten. To conclude, I'll quote Dr. Eva Kurek. Throughout all the years that have passed since the unlawful suspension of the exhumation in the barn in Jedwabne, this small Polish town, instead of being the subject of historical research, became a bargaining chip in German-Jewish political games. Ending the exhumation in 2001 gave credence to Thomas Gross's lies on Jedwabne, and thus gave to some Jewish and German groups weapons to fight the Poles and Poland. Jedwabne was and still is a great tool for Jewish communities unsympathetic to Poland to present to the world Poland as a country of the world's biggest anti-Semites. For the Germans, it was and is a tool to show Poles as partners in shared responsibility for the genocide of the Jews conducted by the Germans in Poland. So that's the story of Jedwabne so far.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating history that I had never known about. And I said today, the 10th of July, is now the 82nd anniversary of this. But like I said, I touched these subjects, and these subjects should be talked about. It shouldn't be about stay away from it. It causes too much discussion, whatever. No, we should discuss it in a good, friendly way. You know, that's what you got to do, and you got to debate these because we must learn from history. So please do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm interested to know. Don't be too radical though. We don't need that. But thank you so much for watching. It's honestly, truly a pleasure to make these videos for you, whether it's serious information, whether it's sports, whether it's comedy. It is my privilege to be able to give it to you guys. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and I will catch you next time.